Alrighty, welcome to today's Wednesday workshop. Feel free to start adding in your questions into the Q&A. Feel free to add any wins that you guys have found this week, any areas where you feel like you might be struggling or you want a deeper review. Until we get questions, I'm just going to go ahead and start taking a peek at open to close, and we'll talk about our resources that we have. If you guys are looking for support, we do have our little chat widget within open to close. You can send us a message through here if you need to chat with us directly. You can also email us at help@opentoclose.com. If you're looking for more training guides or articles, you can always head up to your little person icon and head down to support center. If you're just taking a peek at the front end of open to close, maybe you haven't quite created an account yet, you can always go to our learn and go to our help guides as well. That's going to open up the same link. So it's going to open up our support guides. Once you get into our support guides, feel free, start to type in what you're interested in. Tasks. Let me see what tasks are. Let me see what triggers are and see what kind of information comes up with triggers. Whatever you guys need, feel free to start searching in there. The other options that we have for guidance or assistance is if we go to our Learn tab and we go to webinars, we do have webinars. Today, we covered Tasks and Triggers 101. If you're interested in getting a copy of that recording, definitely feel free to reach out to us. They're usually available within 48 hours. So think like Friday is when we can get that recording out to you guys, or we can send you a previously recorded training that we did. Next week, we're going to be covering Documents 101 and then settings and integration. So documents on Tuesday and settings and integrations on Wednesday. The following week, we're going to be going over intake forms and using open to close on that Tuesday and Wednesday as well. We've got our first question. Let's go ahead and hop right in. Please go over how to create the buyer intake form and the best way to go about it. I have been editing the OTC version, which has been helpful, but still confusing on how certain questions pop up based on the other fields answered. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So we're going to click on our 3-line icon. It's going to just expand this view for us, makes it a little bit easier when we're jumping into the back end and the front end. We'll head down to our hammer icon and we'll head into templates. Once we're in templates, we're going to go down to intake forms. The intake forms that our questionnaire is asking about is the ones that are say OTC 1. If you created your account after December 11th, 2022, you should have access to our pre-built account. In that pre-built account, we do have pre-built intake forms. They'll have this OTC 1. That's how you know that they're a pre-built account. As you can see, I've got a number of more intake forms on this particular account. Let's go ahead and just click on this edit for the buyer's intake form. Now, when we talk about intake forms and we talk about buyer intake forms versus seller intake forms, I want to pause really quickly and kind of talk to you guys about the difference. The main reason that we suggest having build out a buyer's intake form and a seller's intake form is number one, for troubleshooting, right? If anything goes wrong and you go, I'm looking, I filled out this intake form and it brought on these task templates and the task templates are the buyer's one. Why did it do that? Well, if you have them separated and you have them built out that this is your buyer's intake form, it's a lot easier to troubleshoot the triggers that are going on into it, or maybe the fields that came onto it, by having it say, okay, well, this is the buyer's one. Everything that's filled out in here is specifically for my buyers, or when I'm taking care of my buyers who go under contract. So that's sort of the idea. We do have the ability to obviously make a combined version. This is an example of a combined version. This is buyer and seller. A combined version would have different types of conditions to make sure that, well, when we say the client type is equal to seller, we need this set of task templates to come on, or this set of fields. And when we say it's equal to buyer, we need this set of task templates or this set of fields to come onto that particular property. So I'm going to go ahead and say edit. The part of your question, so you said is you're still confused on having certain questions pop up based on other fields answered. So whenever we're looking at that intake form, and I'm going to go ahead and say preview and pop open this intake form. Whenever we're taking a peek at this intake form, and it looks like this one's already kind of filled out, so we'll kind of take a peek at the questions here, and we start answering more questions. They say, yes, there's an inspection. Yes, there's a loan. Will there be an appraisal? Yes. Yes, there's seller disclosure. As I start to answer more of these questions, yes, if I scroll down, I'm going to see more fields start to populate. It's asking me for my appraisal dates, my inspection contingency dates, my finance due dates. And the reason these questions came up was because I indicated that, yes, we're handling that part of the transaction. So whenever we're talking about, when I say, yes, there will be an appraisal, that appraisal due days comes on, where do I edit that within the intake form? The first place you're going to check is number one. I like to say, head to your fields and take a look at what fields are automatically selected. The fields here that are selected are going to show up on that intake form every single time. Once we've confirmed, okay, will there be an appraisal? This one's here, just like how it is up here. Will there be an appraisal? It's required for our agents to fill out. And we also have it that once they fill out that answer, that on the internal side, that field, that answer comes on. Once we know that that field's been selected here, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to head up to where it says automation and click on our form conditions. Now, if you're editing the pre-built one, you already have form conditions built out. If you're adding in new ones, you'd select add condition and follow the prompts from here, selecting property field, and then going from there. Otherwise, if you already are editing the one that we have pre-existing, you can click on condition action map. And I like using that tool because it shows me the logic behind what it's going to do. So for example, this top one says, is there an HOA equal to yes? What does it do next? So dynamically, it will add on the HOA due fields. It'll add on the fees amount. It'll also add on internal instructions. So when you're trying to look, okay, when I answer this question, this other field comes on, I would check out your form conditions and feel free to click on your condition action map. And that's going to show you the different things that it comes on. If we go back to the condition editor, when we're on the condition editor and we select edit action, so here's that, is there an HOA equal to yes? If I select edit action, that allows me to add more fields or remove fields if I need to. So for example, this HOA dues and fees, I might not need that for this particular example. So I might want to delete it. I can just click on the trash can icon and now that field has been removed. When we're going through and we're testing out our intake form, okay, I just removed a field. If I scroll down and I say, where is our question for HOA? Here's our question for HOA. And I say yes to that. If we continue to scroll down, or I believe scroll up, we'll have to see if we can find those fields and where they populate. Okay, looks like that field didn't come on. Awesome. Anytime we make changes to our field or our form conditions, my main suggestion is to select cancel on that form. So we'd want to cancel that intake form and we'd want to re-review that intake form. So we can always click on preview. It'll pop open a brand new preview. When we're looking at the intake form and it asks us to choose team, that means what it's going to do is it's going to bring in that new conditional logic. So let's go ahead and start filling out some of this information just to show you guys what I'm looking at. So here again, we've got our questions. Here's that HOA question. When I say yes to that, if I scroll up, here's HOA dues. When we take a look at this form conditions, if you go, actually, I do need those fees, Hannah, and you type in HOA fee and we add in, oh, actually, you know what? Where's the dues? Want that one, this one. There we go. Fees or dues amount and say HOA, and we'll add on that frequency as well. Here we go. So now we've added on a couple more fields. When we head back to this intake form, we're going to want to say cancel form. And then we're going to want to say preview again. That way we can see what that logic does, how it plays out. So I'm just going to go ahead and select some random team members and choose teams. Head back down to our question. There is an HOA. When I say yes, that HOA due fields comes on and the fees due and the frequency does. So that's an example of how we can kind of check and see how the questions come on. When I say yes, that's when they come on. The other part that I want you guys to notice is that when we take a look at our fields and we're asking in our form condition, when we look at those fields, and I'm going to use my shortcut, I'm going to do Control F or Command F for all of those who are on a Mac. I type in HOA details, see if I can find it actually. Oh, we'll go to details. Sorry about that. So we're going to want to click on transaction details, HOA details, press enter. What I want you guys to take notice is that the only question that's selected in this field group is there an HOA? We don't want the other ones to be selected because we only want them to come on when that question is answered yes. So we'll have that initial question asked. Here it's going to be red. Here we're going to, or here we're going to ask for it. We're going to say it's required on the intake form. We're going to want to make sure it's selected on the internal side as well. So left-hand side is intake form. Do we want it to show up? Do we want it to be required? And then the right-hand side is going to be, we want that answer to come on to the property. So we'll want to make sure it's selected on this side. This is where how we'll want our fields. And then for the rest of the fields in this field section, we're going to want to ask that through our either form conditions, or if it's something that needs to come on every single time, we can also select that field here, and here. And what that'll do is that'll ask it on the intake form every single time, and it'll bring it onto that property every single time. So that's kind of what you'll want to do. Part 2 of this, since we're kind of already looking at, is there an HOA? I'm going to just go ahead and highlight that question. And if I go up to my form conditions, I've confirmed that my form conditions are using that same rule here. Is there an HOA? The next part. So when I submit this intake form, what is it going to do? How does it bring on the fields? How does it bring on the task templates, the document templates, all that good stuff? We're going to head to our form triggers. We're going to click on our trigger options, and then is there an HOA? I'm just going to press enter, and it's going to start taking me to the where else that is there an HOA fields are taken. Looks like we got to follow up. Is there an HOA field is only on the intake question tabs and not underneath that. It does not make a difference. No. So the reason that we have them in 2 different field groups in this example is because we're actually kind of playing around with and trying to figure out where do we want this field located. When we go to our field editor, here, if I go to our field editor and I type in, once again, is there an HOA? I like to use this as it's just a shortcut for me. It'll take me down to that field. Here's that field within that field section. You can have your fields organized in this way where you have that question within the field section. You can also have it where you have a specific field section for it, or I should say a field group for it. So here we've got that field group. If we hover over field group, we can go down to intake questions. Here's a list of those other questions. So you could have it in either or places. It just depends on where you would prefer to see it, right? So when we're looking at that intake form, one thing that I wanted you guys to take notice of as well is when I say yes, there is, if we notice that HOA due days field comes up here underneath my critical deadlines, depending on how you guys want to have your guys' fields organized, you could have those HOA dues and that HOA due date within that same HOA detail section if you'd like to. It just depends on what you on how you would like it to look. Great questions though. Let me know if that makes sense. I would start with kind of taking a peek at your field editor and thinking, okay, what fields do I want to ask on my intake, or what questions do I want to ask on my intake form? Part 2 of that is going over to your templates, into your intake form templates, selecting edit, and just kind of seeing, okay, well, this is the question that's selected on my intake questions. Where is that being used? Use that Control F feature, take a look at the form conditions. Here's that field, click on the edit condition map, see what comes on, see how it brings it on. Same thing with your form triggers. Click on your form triggers here, say enter and say, okay, awesome. So this is a field trigger. It brings on individual fields. If I press enter again, it's going to take me down to that field section. So this brings on that field section. And then if I press enter again, here's that template trigger, and it brings on those templates for us. So this is kind of a good place to kind of go through and see, okay, so when I say, yes, there's an HOA, it brings on these 2 fields right here underneath my trigger assets. It brings on this field section, so all of the fields within that field section. And then lastly, it brings on these templates. And I can edit these by selecting on the trigger themselves if I need to edit them. Let me know if you have any other follow-up questions. That was a great question to start with. All right, next question. Oh, hi, Todd. How are you? Is there a way to filter a view on a property type like you do with the contract status and dates? Can't find a way to do it. Okay. Well, it kind of depends on where you're looking at. If we're, looking at our properties and we're taking a peek at our properties in this list. So example, we're looking at our properties, we're looking at our tables and segments. And we're wanting to filter it based off of a specific, viewpoint here. The only options that are options here are contract client type and contract status at this time. But that doesn't mean that we can't use other filters to try to pull in the information that you're looking for. Typically, what I suggest is we can create a segment. And I'm going to go ahead and create a segment and say property types. Go ahead and say submit. I believe I have a property types field. I hope I do. I'm going to go ahead and clear all of the filters here so that they're nice and clean. It's going to pull in all of our properties. I might want to update my contract status. Let's say I just want to see my buyer side. I can say close. That'll update my contract status. And again, I'm creating a segment and updating that segment. Now, when it comes to, okay, well, how do I see what property type it is without having to click on the property? We can head down to where it says table columns. Once we're on table columns, we can look for that particular field property type. I believe I have that field on here. I might not. Let me just use my my shortcut. Type. It says that I do. Let me just scroll through. Here's property type. There we go. So I clicked on property type. It says property type was added. What I'm going to do is scroll to the top. Here's that property type, and I can bring it to the very top of the table columns, and I can say update. When I do that, it's going to add on that property type, and I can click on the property type, and what it'll do is it'll sort it either by descending or ascending order. So right now it's showing from the oldest to the newest, I believe. And then if we flip it the other way, we're going to see residential grouped at the top, or any other property fields that I might have at the top. Oh, here we go. So residential, new construction, residential, residential. That's really the way that we can use our tables and segments to see what the property type is for here. The other tool that we have, if we wanted to pull in the property type, is by heading over to our reporting tool here. So if you guys are on the Grow, Pro, or Scale plan, you should have access to our reporting tool. I'm going to click on our little reporting tool here. What we can do is we can create a new report. So I'm just going to go ahead and say add a widget. Once we've created that report, we're adding on our widgets. What we're going to do is we're going to want to locate that property type. And then here you can see all these property types. So if I wanted to pull a report and say, well, how many residential properties do I have? I can say update, say build report. Here's residential, and I can click on list. And this will also show me those list of properties, including the month and who they belong to. Looks like we have another follow-up question. I have a view for buyers, sellers, etc. We recently had a need for seeing all rentals and having them grouped. Yeah, no, I can see how having another option here to filter by property type would be could be essential for those cases. What I would probably suggest in that case is submit it to our Idea Lab and see what we can do about it. When we talk about adding in fields to this particular area, like we have contract client type and contract status, what I want you guys to take notice with those fields is that when I go to contract status or contract client type, client type, what I want you guys to notice is that we don't have these little selectable buttons next to them. What that means is this is a field that's hard coded into the system. It works with a ton of other different areas of our system, right? So when we're talking about adding in, property type, we would essentially have to make property type a hard coded field and make it required for all users to enter in or use that field to be able to use the filtering. And that's part of the reason why we've only restricted a certain amount, like the client type or the contract date, closing date, purchase amount, and then the file status, which is that contract status. We've only made certain ones required because we tried to use the bare minimum. That way you guys could customize your accounts as needed. In your case, since you're trying to see, rentals, what I might suggest is having a contract client type that's equal to renter. So you might have buyer, seller, dual, and then renter. And that way, if you have the renter selected, when you're taking a peek at that properties view, instead of you filtering it by buyer, seller, or dual, you could select renter from this list. And that would be just like a quick way to get that in there. Teammates, can you guys think of any other way that we could use our tables and filters or reporting or any other tools to be able to filter that information too?
I would have done it just like you had shown by just sorting and adding that table column. So I don't have another way.
Awesome. No worries. And that's, that's part of it. So if anyone else has any other suggestions, they're like, oh, I filter it based off of this field. It's not one of the hard coded fields. It's not within the filters. And this is how I do it. Definitely feel free to drop that in the Q&A. And we can share that response with our other teams. Awesome. Yeah. It looks like I'm hearing a lot of people say, yep, they would add it into their contract client type. They'd have that additional one that just says renter in there. Yeah. Thank you for the question, Todd. Awesome. So our next question, how do I reassign a property? So first things first, we need to make sure that you have access to that property. So I usually say, take a peek at your organization and users. Again, I'm going to click on that 3-line icon. We're going to head down to our gear icon. We're going to go to organization and users, and we're going to head to teams first. So when we're looking at our teams and we're talking about reassigning a property, as long as that user is on the team, they're going to see that property. So here, for example, I have this one set as all team users. It has both of my team members on here. I also have two other teams, one of them specifically for implementation demo and the other one specifically for Rory. When I go and I impersonate Rory, I'm going to go ahead and impersonate Rory. And I take a look at the properties that are available, I'm going to see the properties that are assigned to the all team and the ones that are assigned to me specifically. So when I go to my property view, the list is probably going to be pretty small. Let's go ahead and say all for here and see how many properties we have available to us. So 125, I think I have about 139 in my main account. When we're taking a look at a property, I'm going to go ahead and click on Arcadia. When we're taking a look at this property and we want to reassign it, we're going to click on our little drop down arrow here. And this will open up that information. We can go to manage property access from this button. We can also go to the more tab and we can go to access as well. Both of these buttons will take us to the same place. It just depends on where you need to click. So here, when I click on that, it's going to take us to our access. And here we can see that this property is assigned to all team users. Specifically, we can see it for implementation demo and for Rory. So both of these people can see this particular transaction. If I reassign this property and I say, I only want Rory to see it, I can change the team. I'm going to choose my user and say update. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it so that this property is only accessible by Rory. We can see here by going back to that same page, we can see who's accessible on it. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to copy the name of this particular property. We're going to exit out of that. We're going to unimpersonate and we're going to search for it, right? We're logged in as implementation demo. Implementation demo is the admin of the account. So they might be able to see this property, but let's test it together and see. When I enter in this in and I search for it, so it does show me the property here. So here we can see this property, Arcadia Bay. Remember, we can see, or Arcadia Avenue, I should say. We can see that it's assigned to Rory. When we update this team access and we change it to implementation demo, and we say that it is for implementation demo, so we're changing that property access again. Here we've changed it. Now it's been changed. I'm going to once again just make sure I have a copy of that. We're going to head back to our organization and users. We're going to impersonate Rory. And now when we search for that particular property, that property is not going to show up for us. And the reason is because it's been reassigned to a completely different team that Rory doesn't have access to. So if you're the admin and you're looking for properties, you should be able to see all properties that are in there. But if you're a user and that property's been reassigned from you to a different team member, they most likely won't be able to see that team or that property anymore if they're not on the same team. Let me know if there are any follow-up questions with that one. I know that I went a little deep on that. Awesome. So we've got another question. What are the either or conditions of a smart block? Perfect. Yeah. So let's pop open a smart block. I'm going to click on our 3-line icon. We're going to head down to our hammer icon and we can click on smart blocks. We can also click into any space in open to close. I usually click into this white space here, or you can click into this background here and we can do Control S, and that's going to pull open our smart blocks as well. So an example of a either or condition would be, for example, let's go ahead and click on HOA responsibilities. We'll scroll to the bottom. We have this condition here that says, if field, is there an HOA is equal to yes, then this smart block will come on. An example of an or condition would be if I click on where it says field and it's in blue, and it's going to pull open a child condition. So here I can create a child condition and we'll go ahead and create that. And I'll say if the property field HOA due date is not blank. Okay. So property field HOA due date is not blank. What this is going to do is this is going to create that or field. So now once this condition area goes away, we'll see here that it says field, is there an HOA equal to yes, or the HOA due date is not blank. That's when this intake, or that's when this smart block is going to be applied to my emails or wherever else I might have it. So this is an example of that either or. You can use that either or on smart blocks. You can use it on intake forms. You can use it on tasks. You can use it on task triggers. You can use it on property triggers. So there's basically almost everywhere that you can use it. The only place that I know for sure that or conditions cannot work on is going to be when we're talking about form conditions. That's the only place where we can't use or either or and conditions like this. Alrighty, we've got another question. When using the inspect tool in the property, why are the merge fields showing red in the email template? Great question. So let's go ahead and head to our webinar property. And we're going to click on our little bar up here. There's a couple places that we can get to that inspect tool that our attendees asking about. We can either go to our tasks, we can scroll down, click on any of our triggers with or our tasks with a trigger on them, and we can click on inspect, and it's going to pull open that email. We can also head over to our health bar up at the top. This is usually what I see people doing because they're going to come up to their health bar. They're going to inspect their emails here. Let me find one that has an example that's here. Let me see if this has got my intro emails on it. Perfect. So here's an example of my emails. I'm going to click on inspect. It's going to pull open that send opening emails. And if I scroll down on this list, here we can see an example of a red merge field. So this is specifically a Smartblock saying that the Smartblock B inspection responsibilities are incomplete. What does that mean? It means that it's not met the conditions for this Smartblock. Most likely the Smartblock is built off to say, is an inspection required? If that question's equal to yes, then it comes on. It doesn't always mean that it's going to be added to this email though, right? For this one, it works off that condition. Another example, if I see here below, I've got quite a list of fields that it's bringing on too. Let's go ahead and clear out one of those fields. Let's grab the listing price. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use my feature. I'm going to use Control G. It's going to pull up in my fields. I'm going to type in listing. I'm going to press enter. Here's our listing price. I'm going to clear that value out and give it the check mark. Once I know that this is done spinning, that means this value has been updated and saved. It's empty now. We do not have a value in there. When we say close, we go back over to that email. So clicking on our health bar and then clicking on inspect. And I scroll down to that particular area. Ta-da! Now we see that it says the list price is also red. So what this means is that this value has not been filled out. When we take a look at that email with the merge fields, if the merge fields are missing, it's going to say this. When we go to send out that email, this is what it's going to look like. So it'll just say listing price and then it'll be empty next to it. That's just to give you guys an idea of why that looks like that. Awesome. Next question is, why do merge fields or date fields not update after changes has been made to the email templates after the edit has been clicked? Awesome. So this is a great question. So when we're reviewing these emails, right, let's go ahead and click on this coordinate closing details one. So here we can see that right now it's trying to pull in that title officer's first name. If I select edit, and I get this message and it says, this will fully render this email and convert all merge field content. What this means is that when I say edit, I've detached it from that main email template. And so now if I want to add in the title officer's full name, or if I wanted to add in a date or a time or another merge field into this email template, it's officially been detached. Anytime I go back to review this email and say inspect, I'm not going to be able to see that original email template because it's now its own solo thing. We would want to say edit, and then we would want to manually enter in the title officer's name. So I just typed in Jana, one of my coworkers. So anytime you guys click on that edit button and you see that notification, again, I'll go ahead and do it on this other one. So inspect, we'll scroll all the way down to the bottom and I select edit. When you see this particular notification here and it says edit, when we select edit, we've detached it from that master email template. Any changes to that master email template are not going to reflect on that email after we select edit. Another quick way to see if an email has been detached or it's something that we would need to edit manually is by looking up here at the top of that email. When we say inspect, we can say message, and then next to it, we can see the template. This template is going to show us what that template looks like without the merge fields rendered. So who is it sending to in our to fields, in our CC and our BCC fields? What does our subject look like without the address pulled in? And what does that email look like without the merge fields pulled in and without the smart blocks rendered? Awesome. Next question. Can you edit the main template from that trigger instead of clicking edit to add in a merge field? Yes. So if we wanted to edit that template, Here, I'm going to click on our little health bar again. I'm going to open up our send opening emails. When I'm looking at this particular email here, if I wanted to edit the values in here, let's say we wanted to add on additional fields or we needed additional merge fields. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to actually select the email itself. So either we can select email here or we can select the email here, and this side panel will pop up. When this side panel pops up, it's going to show you what email template is currently applied. We're going to click on that email current template, and it's going to give us a warning. You're editing the master email template. When we edit this master email template, we're editing it for our entire system. Okay. The great thing about our email templates is that if you're like, oh, that's a hiccup, I need to change this, it actually needs to say this verbiage instead of this other verbiage. Editing the master email template on the property is going to make those changes for all other properties that are using this email template. Okay. So when I say edit and I change this and I say yes, and I come in here and I say meow, 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 and I've updated this, I'm updating that master email template. When I go to a different property, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of there. Let's go ahead and go to our West Reading Street, and we go to our emails and we locate that same email, send opening email. Let me see if I can find that exact one. Okay, let's go ahead and reapply that task template and let me locate it. We're going to reapply that task template. We'll go ahead and say close. It's refreshed. We'll see our opening emails here. When we click on those triggers and we locate that email again, so here's that intro email to buyer. When I say inspect, and we scroll down, meow, meow, meow is right there. Okay. So if we needed to edit that, actually, Hannah, I don't want the meow, meow, meow there. What do I do? What do I do? We're going to click on that email again. We're going to click on that name of that email template. That's going to warn us about editing the master email template. We're going to say yes. And we're going to say we want to delete the meow, meow, meow. This is making that update for all of our templates that are applied to all of our properties that are using this particular email template. So when I say close and I close out of our West Reading Street and I go back to our Ivy Lane and I go to review that email and our opening emails and we click on inspect again, ta-da, once it loads, that particular meow, meow, meow is gone. So that's just to give you an idea of how powerful our email templates are. When we make edits to that email template, it updates it for our entire system, makes it a lot easier for us to go through. Awesome. Let me know if there are any other questions. Please feel free to drop them into the Q&A. A little bit of a slow moment, which is totally fine. Are there any wins that anyone's had? Oh, awesome. We've got another question. What are the limitations for the amounts of smart blocks per plan? Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to want to do is we'll go over to our little open to close website. We're going to want to go to pricing, and we can use that same feature that I've been talking about, that Control F or Command F. That's going to be something that's built into your browser that you can use, and we can type in smart blocks. Here we go. Press enter. What that's going to do is it's going to take us down to where we're looking for smart blocks. So on the Grow plan, we have a limit of 25 smart blocks. On the Pro plan, it's unlimited. And on the Scale plan, it's unlimited. If you're like, what plan am I on though, Hannah? We're going to head over to our little person icon and we're going to go to plan and billing. And then here where it says choose your plan, it's going to show which plan you're on. Now, some of you guys may have signed up for open to close before we had this new pricing plan change. So if here you're seeing where it says premium or premium add-on pro, those prices are going to be from our previous pricing plan. If you ever need to get to it to see what those previous pricings were and what is included on that plan, you're going to click into the URL where it says opentoclose.com. And here where it says V2, we can change that to 1 and press enter. And it's going to take us back to our previous pricing plan. So this is just for anyone who is on that premium plan or that premium add-on plan. If you're on the premium plan, same exact thing when we're talking about our smart blocks. The premium plan only gets access to 25. If your account says you're on the premium plan with premium add-on, the premium add-on is going to be unlimited. So here's that premium add-on. It's only an extension that's on the premium plan. This would make it that you have unlimited smart blocks. I believe another way to double check in the system too is by going to the smart blocks themselves. And here, if you have over 25 and they are not limited, and you are limited, right? It will technically show here. It'll say you've met your limit. You only have 25, either upgrade or turn off some other smart blocks that you have. Awesome. We've got another question. Can you explain file roles, please? Absolutely. So when you guys are getting started in open to close, there's 3 parts of the system that we usually suggest that you take a peek at first. So we want you to take a look at your fields. So heading to your field editor here, we want you to take a look at your contact roles and your file roles as well. So I'm going to head down to filters. Once we're in filters, we can go to file roles. And then here we can see a list of all of our file roles that we have right now. Again, if you're in the pre-built account, some of these file roles are going to look really familiar. If you've already made custom edits to your file roles, it might look different from this. File roles are very powerful. It's a very powerful feature that allows us to use conditional logic with them. It allows us to automatically attach them to email templates. It's a way to organize your files on your property. It's also a way to rename files that get uploaded into open to close. What I typically suggest when you're kind of looking through your file roles and what kind of updates you should make is, number one, take a look at what kind of files you're currently processing. So if you're processing that BS, that buyer signed, or that SS, that seller signed document, or that FE, that fully executed document, I suggest having each version of that file within open to close as its file role. So here you can see an example. We've got this addendum 1 BS. That's for that buyer signed, that FE for that seller signed, or I'm sorry, for that fully executed, and that SS for that seller signed. And the reason we have it like this is that if you need to track at what stage you got those documents, you can use the file roles and you can use that SS, that BS, that FE to say which version of the file that you have. Okay. And depending on which version of that file that you have, you can also have conditional logic to bring on extra smart blocks, to bring on it onto a property, onto an email template. You can have it that, maybe it's a prompt for you to know, oh, I'm using this as a conditional logic for myself. I can't check off this task until I've received the fully executed file. So file roles are really, really powerful for these. Looks like we got a follow-up question. Can you add file roles to documents uploaded from an intake form? Yes, you can. So it just depends. After you're done editing, adding in each version of your file role that you need, we're going to exit out of our file roles. There's 2 places where we can start taking a peek at where the file roles kind of connect. We can head down to our templates, into our templates, and head to our document templates. Here, if I go to our document templates, I'm just going to go to our main buyers one. What I want you guys to take notice is that this particular field here, or this particular file, has a little fire icon associated with it. What that means is that this file has its file role associated. The one above it, EDM and addendum 1, they do not have any file roles associated with it. So this would be if you wanted to associate it with your document templates. If we're taking a look at your intake form, and we go to your intake forms and we select edit on that same intake form we were looking at earlier, we can go to documents. Once we're on documents, we'll want to make sure that this button is turned on. If it is off, it's not going to generate files on that intake form. When it's green, that means it's on. If we take a look here, we can say, here's the document name. We can also say it requires whether it requires a file be uploaded to it. But when we're taking a look at that document list, it's right here next to it. Here, this one says contract intake. Here we can set a file role on this contract intake form as well. Or I'm sorry, on this contract document that would be uploaded as well. So here I can add in a file role if I wanted to here. The other place that I can have file roles come on is when I'm looking at my form conditions and I click on my action map. Let's see if I've got an example of one on here. Here's an example. So here I've got this, is there a referral equal to yes? This also brings dynamically on files that are already associated with file roles. So this brings on the referral agreement and the W-9. Let me know if you have any other further questions about that. Like I said, file roles are really cool. They're used in a ton of different areas of the system. If we went to a property to take a peek at it and I go to my documents, usually all of my documents are going to have a file role uploaded with it. But what I said earlier that when we have file roles and you have each version of that file updated and you have each version of that file role. When we look at a document that doesn't have a file role associated, so for example, this says new account dashboard view. And I know this is just a screenshot of when you have a new account, what it looks like. But if I wanted to update that name of this file, if I click on this little drop down, as long as I have this set up in my settings and I change this to 4-point inspection, it's going to update. Oh, it's going to update the name of that particular file. And it looks like it put it in alphabetical order. If I click on that main file, here's that same exact image that we just looked at. To update these tools, let's say you're like, I like that, but I actually don't want it to update the name of my file. I prefer the original name that we had, Hannah. How do I make that change? We're going to exit out of this property. We're going to head down to our gear icon and we're going to head into our global settings. Once we're in our global settings, we're going to take a look at our defaults, and then we're going to look for renaming the main file. Underneath renaming the main file, this one right now, it says, yes, rename. When a file role is applied to that placeholder, that document placeholder, we do want it to rename the file. We can also have that same setup for our additional files as well. So like I said, you might have different versions of that file. You might have the buyer signed uploaded first, and then you got the seller signed version uploaded next, or maybe you get that fully executed uploaded. You might want to have it that the additional files get renamed or not. Right now, I have it set to do not rename file. That way, if I have it that, originally it was the buyer signed, I'm going to go back to Ivy. We're going to go to our documents. I'm going to update this and I'm going to say that this is the buyer sign first. Well, when I upload another document to it, it's going to push this file to my additional documents, and it's going to take the next file and it's going to put it right here. So if I add in another document or if I upload another document, so I'm going to want that additional document to keep the name buyer sign 1 or the addendum 1 BS. That way I know the additional document is the one that has that buyer sign, and maybe my main file is the one that has my fully executed or my fully executed signatures. Any other questions? Definitely feel free to drop in any other questions that you guys have into the Q&A. We are at the last 15 minutes of the session. So if we don't have any more questions, I can give you guys a couple more minutes back into your day. We'll go ahead and wait 2-3 more minutes. If you guys have any questions on any part of the system, you want to see any of the features that we recently have updated and open to close, definitely feel free to drop them in. Oh, awesome. Okay. We've got another one. How do you assign an intake form to a user? So when we're talking about users within open and close, there's 2 types of users. We've got our team members and we've got our agent portal users. Any team member is going to have access to all intake forms. So if I'm logged in as me, implementation demo, I'm going to have access to all the intake forms. If I head over to our gear icon again, go into organization users, here's Rory. When I impersonate them, we see that red bar at the top that shows us that we're impersonating. And I go to add in a new intake form. They're also going to see all intake forms. When we're talking about agents, however, I'm going to go ahead and unpersonate. There's 2 places that we can check what agent has what intake forms assigned to them. First, we can head to our gear icon, go to our organization and users. If your list of agents is as small as mine, this might be an easy place to double check. We can click on that test OTC agent here, and we can go to forms and we can see what intake forms have been assigned to them. This is really easy. Again, if you have like a couple agents, if you have more than a couple agents, let's say you've got 25 or even 5+, what I suggest is heading to our templates, heading to our intake form templates. When we have that intake form that we want to check, so buyers residential, we can select edit, and then we can go to assigned agents right here underneath the settings. And this is going to show me all of the agents that are assigned to it, as well as who this intake form would be assigned to once that agent has submitted it. So here we can see when buyers residential is filled out by test OTC agent, this particular contract is automatically assigned to Rory Miller. If I type in test again, here's our test OTC2 agent. This is our second agent. And I say that they fill out the intake form. Maybe I need that to actually get applied to implementation demo. Implementation demo takes care of our test 2 agent. Test OTC is taken care of by Rory. I would just want to make sure to select my team user, my brokerage, and the time zone that's associated with this particular user. Let's go ahead and say Arizona. The time zone for them can be different from what's on that intake form, just to give you guys an idea. Now, once I have this on here, when you guys are going to test out your intake forms, and you just click on add plus new intake forms, and we open up that intake form, anytime a user, so an internal user, Rory or me, fill out that intake form, we're going to want to select who this belongs to. And we're going to want to select the agent. We don't have to select the agent if we don't want to, but this is how you'd select it. For our agents, when they go to fill out that intake form, I'm just going to go ahead and impersonate one of our agents. Head down to our gear icon, organization users, head over to agents. We're going to click on our little impersonation button. Once we've impersonated that user, we can head to forms, which is going to be our little paper icon here. Here's our intake forms. Here are the forms they have access to. When they start that form, they're just going to get straight to filling out the address. They're not going to have to worry about selecting team member or team user. You guys have already set that in the back end automatically. So they're just filling out the address and kind of moving along with that particular intake form. Awesome. Next question, where do I go to see new changes? So if you guys are looking for new updates within Open to Close, you can always head over to our person icon up here at the top and click on change log. We like to keep this updated as much as we can whenever we've got big pushes or big updates, but this is where you can see the new updates. I believe we're also making posts on Facebook. So if you want to join our Facebook group, definitely feel free to do so. I don't have the link on hand, but if one of my panelists has the links, let me know. Feel free to send it to me and I can drop it into the chat. Our Facebook group is really awesome for a place to go if you guys are looking for how do our other users using Open to Close, or how do you build this, or just like a quick place to kind of share strategy and see what other strategies other people are using as well. As we post on there as well, right? It's our Facebook group. We also post updates there too. I would love to see any of the recent updates. Yeah, so this would be technically where we would see some of those recent updates. Has there been any updates to the compensation calculating in now? I'm assuming you're referring to our commission calculator. And if you are, again, the commission calculator is going to only be available for, or commission report, I should say, is only available for people who are on the Grow, Pro, or Scale plan. If you're on that Grow plan, you're going to have access to create a commission report. If you're on that Pro plan, you're going to have access to create a commission report and apply a template. And if you're on that Scale plan, you're going to have access to creating as many commission reports as you need to and creating as many templates as you need to. If you guys need to double check our pricing on that, like I said, head over to Open to Close, click on our pricing, and then I would just go in and type in commission. Oop, I think it's 2 M's. There we go. And then once you get down here, it'll show you how many commission reports you have. Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. We've got it. Someone shared the link to our Facebook groups here. I'm just going to grab that link and I'll drop it in our chat for anyone who's interested. Ooh, there we go. So feel free to check the chat if you guys are interested in joining our Facebook group. So as far as for updates to the commission calculator, or I mean the commission report, not any that I know of. Team, are there any recent updates that that have happened to the commission calculator that that we might need to share? Cool. Yeah, I don't believe there was anything new recently that was updated with this. I can definitely check our report logs as well. If you're, if you're super interested, you're anonymous right now, that's totally fine. But if you wanted to ask us, feel free to reach out to, us at Open to Close. Oh, the commission section's new to you. Okay. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So if you just signed up for Open to Close, or I'm sorry, you just signed up and you have that, the access to the commission reports, depending again on what plan you're on, I would definitely take a peek at this. Oh, it looks like we do have an update. Was there one for 7:30? There was. So the most recent update happened on 7:30, or is this going to be June? I was wondering if I could find it in here. Doesn't look like I can find it in here, but it looks like this update was, we were unable to save a currency field at the template level, but you could apply the same field once the commission template has been applied to an actual transaction. The issue with not being able to apply this field at the template level was a bug and has now been resolved. Oh, sounds like there was some issues with our commission templates and being able to save a value field or a currency field in this area. But now it sounds like that bug was resolved. What I would suggest when we're taking a look at our commission templates is take a peek at what you guys are currently using. Grab a property that's got commission details on it. So if I go to commission details, here's our commission details. Feel free to populate some commission details and create a new report, right? Once you create that report, play around with it. Our top level step here is going to be the main step that we have. It's like, think of it as the top level. You can create more than one top level step. An example of a top level step could be, the initial commission for buyer side. We can say what the action top is. Do we want to take a percentage of the purchase amount, copy from a value or a field, or enter in a flat amount? I'll go ahead and say purchase amount, like take a percentage of that purchase amount. Here, I'll go ahead and say it's 5%. And then I always like to include the downloads so that I can see the step that I took, the calculation, and what the total of that step was. This will just show it to me on that PDF as well. So it just shows me the math. When I say add step, it's going to add that in there. And now we see that 1700 or 17K of this was taken and put into this area. I can add an additional step here and say, okay, well, I need, my buyer agent split. I can say how I want this. Do I want it to be a nested calculation, a specific percentage? Do I want to copy it from a field? Do I want to add or subtract that percentage? Do I want to do a value amount, so like a dollar amount? Or do I want to grab, just a specific split from this that's not associated with a field? It's not subtracting it as much as it's just showing a split of that particular amount. So I would definitely suggest kind of going through and like playing around with this and like seeing what you guys can create. And then if you run into anything or you're like, how do I accomplish this? Definitely feel free to send us a Loom video. Loom videos are going to be the best tools for us to kind of go through and kind of see what your thought process is, how you're building things out. If you submit them to our help center, we'll be able to get back to you a lot quicker with better, more clear answers, because we can see, okay, this is what you were thinking, or what you wanted to achieve on that particular commission calculator. Awesome. We are down to no questions. I'll go ahead and wait one more minute. If we have no more questions, we'll go ahead and close for today. I appreciate all the questions that you guys came in with today. Like I said, just some things within open to close. If you guys are looking for webinars, you can head to our Learn tab and go to webinars. Again, like I said, today we did tasks and triggers. Next week on Tuesday, we're going to be going over Documents 101. On Wednesday, we're going to be going over settings and integrations. The following week after that, we're going to be going over intake forms, property templates. And then on that next coming Wednesday, so next Wednesday, or 2 Wednesdays from now, we're going to be going over using open to close 101. Some people will take those sessions 3 or 4 times because it makes the most sense for them. Awesome. We've got another question. Can you make a commission report using a field named commission to see overall amount? Can you make a commission report using a field named commission to see the overall amount? Yes. So when we're looking at those commission templates, if you have those commission fields here, so for example, this one's commission total flat fee, it's pulling in 10 grand right here. And we take a peek at this particular in reporting. I'm assuming, are we talking about the commission reports here? Or are we talking about the reporting tool that we have? Reporting tool. Okay. Yeah. So when we go to that reporting tool, we can technically pull in a widget and we can say that we're looking for that particular commission amount. So I would just scroll through until you find that commission amount that you're trying to track. Let me see if I can use my shortcut. Here's our commission. So we can either pull it by commission flat fee, or we can commission by pull it in by the total commission amount here. So I'll just go ahead and say commission flat fee. When I say build that report, here's that commission flat fee at the top. I can click on the list. And if you see here, we've got implementation demo and Rory. Here we can see for implementation demo, these were the values for them within these months. It looks like they're the only one who's been receiving commission. I can also remove Rory and see, okay, what's the commission that is specifically for implementation demo for this past year? I can also use the different tools here to say, well, what was it last year? Or what was it for this year? But I specifically want to see, a specific date range. Let me say, let's just see the last, let's go ahead and say Q2. So now we can see in Q2 from April to June, this is how much commission they made versus, if I click back on that date, we click onto this and we say Q3, this is how much commission they made in Q3. So you can use the reporting tool to pull in those commission amounts. Right now, I think we're only utilizing the total commission flat fee. I don't believe we're utilizing the percentage. So I think that's why it didn't show up on that list. I'd have to double check. If you have any more questions about that, definitely feel free to reach out to us in support too. If you're saying, if you've tried to pull it and you're like, I'm not seeing what I need to say, it could be either we don't have enough properties to be able to pull that data to see that report populate correctly, or something else is going on. So definitely feel free to reach out to us. Other than that, we've got no more questions. I think we're ready to close out for today. Unless you guys have any last minute ones, I'll leave it for another minute. And if we don't have any questions, thank you guys for joining us today. I appreciate all the questions that you guys have been dropping into the Q&A. Like I said, hopefully we'll see you, if welcome to join our group onboarding sessions next week. We also have that Wednesday workshop as well next week at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Mountain Time. Awesome, guys. Stay warm or stay cool. Make sure you guys are keeping yourselves hydrated and have a wonderful rest of your week.